Chief. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
There are lots of questions now about whether BART is safe. Are you making any security changes in the wake of the stabbing that happened on Sunday?
Yes, absolutely. What we've seen over time is that our crime has actually at the same rate as last year. So our crime hasn't gone up, but we had these 3 horrible incidents. So we are increasing our patrols throughout the system in the stations and on the trains.
When you say increasing patrols, what does that mean? Because it's my understanding that your force is currently 25 officers short of what it's budgeted for. So what are you doing in that regard?
Sure. We do have 25 vacancies, and we are being very aggressive in recruiting. When I came here a year ago, we had over 40 vacancies, so we dropped that down to 25, but we still need to fill those. But we've been using overtime to get our officers in the stations on the trains to supplement the officers that are on the regularly scheduled workday.
So prior, from what you and your deputies have said, that you had 1 officer for every 2 to 3 stations. There are 48 BART stations. So with these changes that you're putting in place now, how many officers do you have patrolling per station, and for how long?
Well, of course, it will vary time of day, day of week, because we also look at the hot spots in the area and the calls for service. So, you know, it could be anywhere between 25 to 40 officers at any given time. But also, we want to focus in the areas that are either generating the more calls for service, or the ones that are problematic with quality of life issues that are making riders feel unsafe.
Which areas would those be?
Our busiest stations are San Francisco and the Oakland stations for calls for service, but we got to make sure as a regional police department that we have adequate coverage and attention throughout all 4 counties that we serve.
And do you think these changes that you're making are enough to keep riders safe?
Well, we are definitely continuing our hiring effort. We do need to hire more police officers to continue to increase safety. And I think we're on the right track. And there are, you know, tips that we give to our riders to make sure that they can do some things to help in the effort of making BART as safe as possible.
What are some of those tips? What would you advise people?
Sure. One of the problems that we do have throughout the system are the cell phone thefts. So we really encourage folks to keep their laptops and their cell phones secured when they're coming up to stations, to be aware of their surroundings, to try to avoid sleeping while on the train. And, you know, oftentimes, you know, there's an adage in the criminal justice system where opportunity makes the thief. And we don't want to give those opportunities to individuals that are looking to take advantage of people.
But I think what has the most attention right now, national attention even, are the violent crimes, particularly Sunday stabbing. And you mentioned earlier that crime has not really risen on BART over the past year. But if you look at State Department of Justice figures over a decade, they show that violent crimes on BART has actually increased by nearly 70% over the past decade. This happened at a time when such crimes fell 7% across California. What do you think accounts for this rise in violent crime on BART?
Well, truly, these 3 past incidents that have been categorized as homicides are really an anomaly in our system, because we don't see that level of violence. But what we have seen over time have been the phone snatches, which are documented as violent crimes when force or fear is used to take somebody else's cell phone. But in terms of these recent violent crimes that occurred, definitely an anomaly, not something that we have seen in the past. And that's why, you know, very proud that we took the prompt actions that we did to bring 2 of the 3 suspects into custody.
BART has been, since you mentioned those 2 other assaults, BART has been criticized for a lack of transparency, including on those 2 assaults. In addition to the Sunday stabbing, this is on top of other lapses in the past, decoy cameras that didn't work, failing to inform the public of a takeover robbery by a mob of juveniles. How do you respond to concerns that BART is not open and honest with the public about these things?
Well, first of all, I do want to address the two incidents that occurred, because I was not here during those previous incidents. But what I can tell you on those 2 incidents, we had to wait for an autopsy to determine the cause of death on one of the incidents. And on the other one, the person did not pass away until Sunday. So literally, it was a timing issue where the very next day we put out the information on all 3 homicides. Within a very short period of time, all that went out to the public. So I believe that is transparent, and you also need to give time for the investigative process to work through it to make sure that we're providing accurate information to the public.
Fair enough, because you've been on the job for only about a year now, so you're right. The other things happened before your tenure. But given what has happened and given the ongoing public concerns, are you planning any additional changes in the reporting out of crimes on BART?
Well, we're constantly looking at how we can improve that. We do have a public log that people can sign into. We also have crimemapping.com, which is very common in the policing industry, which is automatically feeds from our computer-aided dispatch system to the internet, and anybody with internet access can take a look at that as well.
Have you had any conversations with the family of Nia Wilson, the young woman who died in the stabbing on Sunday?
I've had conversations with their spokespeople, and I've left a message for the father, and obviously they're going through a very difficult time. And
what did you say?
Just expressing my condolences, not only on my behalf, but on the behalf of the men and women of the BART Police Department. It's a very tragic incident.
There have been some protests and marches, as you know, and some members of the community who feel that the attack was racially motivated. Mr. Cowell, the suspect, is white. The two women who were stabbed are black. What would you say to those who have these concerns about whether the attack was racially motivated?
Well, you know, I'm definitely sensitive to that perspective, and I just want to say that up to this point, we haven't found a connection to say that it was racially motivated, but it's not something that we take off the table. So if information does come to light that it was racially motivated, we will get that information to the district attorney's office immediately, and they can decide whether a hate crime would be appropriate to be filed.
All right, and just real quickly, we have about 15 seconds. What more do you need from city, county, and state officials to improve safety on BART? Your number one wish?
I think it's a collaborative effort. We need to work in a positive way and really support civility amongst all to make it safer.
All right. BART Police Chief Carlos Rojas, we thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.